Hello, this is Dr. Jason Munsell. It's about 12:30 or so, Tuesday, February 28th, that Tuesday. Happy Mardi Gras. Let me see my beads. Got beads. I'm going to be pretty brief here because I'm going to have to break this up in segments. And I'm a little bit behind, and I might end up doing something I really didn't want to do, and that is using some previous lectures from previous iterations of this class that are about the chapters, but they're just a little old, so some of the references might be a little bit dated. Of course, all my references are dated because like 80s stuff. But in this, we're moving to chapter 11, and I know several of you have already read chapter 11, and I put some a new form up, but I'm going to start with just talking about some basic issues in the thesis, because this is it's a really interesting chapter and some really complicated stuff. First, they talk about ICT, and that's information communication technology. So I don't know why they're talking necessarily about this, but they're pretty interested in ICT as a type of CMC, and they're talking about things like laptops, mobile network, cards, flash drives, email, smartphones, mobile phones, all that type of stuff. And so, again, lots of abbreviations. One of the things that's really interesting here, I think, though, is they talk about how the technology itself is ubiquitous, which means it's all around us, so we don't really notice it all that much. It's like invisible technology. We know the phone is there, but we're so used to it being there that, you know, as the old song goes, or saying, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. So it's like, oh, well, where's my phone? Here it is. Yay. Hi. But in any case, it's there's more and more, inventions ruin our lives. It's just things that we just take for granted. A lot of the technology that just didn't exist a while back, so it becomes invisible to us, and just this is what we have. It's just normal that I have my phone out, talking or walking around looking at this instead of looking at people. And there is this sort of big paradox. I'll let you sort of read it. Particularly with family. Now note that this chapter is primarily about issues of gender and family, and how families use CMC, but more specifically what they call ICT. Is that a lot of this stuff was supposed to make our lives better, easier. Not so much, because I've got my whole home office here. I have access to everything here at home that I have access to at my office. That's why sometimes I work from home. Actually, a lot of my technology, I know my wireless is better here at home than it is on campus. That's for damn skippy true. But in any case, that's a paradox, that the more sort of technology that we have that is meant to make our lives easier, actually doesn't. And so within the context of family, families, parents, for instance, are working more at home now because all these devices allow us to, in a sense. And I really like the big argument. It's called Family Ties. I love that show. Michael J. Fox was on the Oscars. But I really love the thesis, and it's a really complicated thesis, and I'm going to back up a little bit and say a few things about issues of feminism and feminist theory. But basically what they say here, we posit, which means we offer, we supply, that cultural meanings and patriarchal structures shape the meanings of ICTs and the ways that people interact and relate to new media. So basically, gendered norms that we have in our society impacts the meaning of technology and all this stuff, and impacts how we use it. Technology is not only a socially constructed system of knowledge, but also a historical, cultural, and politically situated communication artifact that becomes gendered, raced, and classed within dominant systems of knowledge and inequitable power relations. So basically, in our world, particularly in Western society, our ideas of science and all this type of stuff, technology has a certain socially constructed meaning, and usually it's good. And technology was always good until we learned how to use technology to, create weapons of mass destruction. So this idea is simply that we live in a complex world with certain values. Some values are privilege over other values. Some people have power, some people don't have power. And so there are certain norms in our culture that privileges, masculinity, privileges certain races, Caucasian, and politically situated, ideas of democracy and all that jazz. So it's really this critical theory type of stuff that we're thinking about here. So what they say is that we have to think about all that type of stuff when we're thinking about the impact that CMC and here ICT has generally, but also more specifically for this chapter in family communication. The meanings, they say, this is the last little part of their thesis, thereby produce and reproduce stereotypical ways in which women and men use ICTs for family communication. So in a sense, if you want to say, okay, there are certain norms in our society that are problematic and oppressive and sexist, they are arguing that how we think about technology, how we use technology, how we use all this stuff to communicate might potentially simply sustain that sexism, if that makes any sense. That's pretty much their argument. Okay. Whoa. I know you can't see that, sorry. Terrible PowerPoint. They are taking, for the most part, before I get to their literature review, feminism. And I know sometimes that has a certain connotation, and all sort of depends on how you look at things. It itself is a socially constructed idea. But Sanja Fa says this: feminists do not believe that oppression and domination are worthy human values and seek to eradicate the ideology of domination that permeates Western culture. They want to transform relationships and the competition or relationship and the larger culture so that the patriarchal values and traits of alienation, competition, imperialism, elitism, control, and dehumanization that seek that characterize interaction under an ideology of domination are disrupted. So they want to disrupt alienation, competition, imperialism, elitism, control, and dehumanization. Domination is bad. Then they want to create relationships that are characterized by self-determination, equality, fairness, responsibility, affirmation, valuing others, acknowledgement